In today's story, a wealthy woman boards a plane and refuses to sit next to someone she calls beneath her. She demanded to be moved, made a scene, humiliated her in front of everyone. But 30 minutes into the flight, when that plane started falling from the sky, the woman she insulted became the only person who could save them. This is a story about judgment, about courage, and about how heroes don't always look the way you expect. Stay until the end. What happens at 30,000 feet will leave you breathless. At Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, Gate 27, passengers were boarding Flight 447 to Los Angeles. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The flight was packed, business travelers, families, a few tourists. And sitting in the waiting area, reading a worn paperback novel, was a woman named Catherine. Catherine Williams. 63 years old, gray hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, wearing comfortable jeans, a plain sweater, and sneakers that seen better days. She carried a small backpack, faded and patched in a few places. To anyone looking at her, Catherine seemed ordinary, maybe even struggling. But Catherine Williams was anything but ordinary. For 35 years, she'd been a commercial airline pilot, one of the first women to break into the field in the 1980s when cockpits were still considered men only. She'd flown for United Airlines, logged over 20,000 flight hours, trained countless new pilots, earned multiple safety awards. And 5 years ago, she'd retired. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to spend time with her grandchildren, travel for leisure instead of work, read books, garden, live a quiet life. Catherine had loved flying more than anything, but she'd also seen enough emergencies, enough close calls, enough moments of terror at 35,000 feet that she was ready for peace. Today, she was flying to Los Angeles to visit her daughter and her 2 granddaughters. She'd bought a basic economy ticket, the cheapest option, not because she couldn't afford it, but because she didn't need it. Comfort wasn't about the seat, it was about the journey. Catherine looked up as the gate agent announced boarding. She stood, grabbed her backpack, and joined the line. She had no idea that this flight was about to test every skill she'd ever learned, and that the woman sitting next to her would wish she'd kept her mouth shut. Catherine boarded the plane and found her seat, 23B, middle seat. She settled in, placing her backpack under the seat in front of her. A few minutes later, a young man took the window seat, 23A. He smiled politely at Catherine. "Afternoon," he said. "Afternoon," Catherine replied warmly. The aisle seat, 23C, was still empty. And then she arrived. A woman in her late 30s, designer business suit, perfectly styled blonde hair, expensive carry-on luggage, diamond earrings that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her name was Victoria Cross, and she was not happy. Victoria looked at her boarding pass, then at the seat numbers. "You've got to be kidding me," she muttered. She stared at Catherine, then at the middle seat, then back at Catherine. "Excuse me," Victoria said, her tone sharp. "I think you're in my seat." Catherine checked her boarding pass. "I'm in 23B. This is my seat." Victoria's jaw tightened. "And I'm 23C, which means I'm supposed to sit there." She gestured at the aisle seat with obvious disgust. "That's correct," Catherine said calmly. Victoria let out an exasperated sigh. "This is unacceptable." She turned and flagged down a flight attendant, a young woman named Sarah. "Excuse me, I need to speak to someone about changing my seat," Victoria said. Sarah smiled professionally. "Is there a problem, ma'am?" "Yes," Victoria said, lowering her voice, but not enough. "I can't sit here." "Is there an issue with the seat?" Sarah asked. Victoria glanced at Catherine. "The seat is fine. The company is not." Catherine's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Sarah looked confused.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. Victoria leaned in closer. Look at her, she whispered, gesturing at Catherine. She looks like she can barely afford this ticket. Her clothes are old, her bag is falling apart. I paid full price for my seat, and I'm not going to sit next to someone who clearly doesn't belong in this cabin. Sarah's face flushed. Ma'am, all passengers have the right to their assigned seats. I want to be moved, Victoria interrupted. First class, business class, I don't care, just not here. The flight is completely full, Sarah said apologetically. I don't have any other seats available. Then bump someone, upgrade me, do something. The young man in the window seat, his name was Kevin, spoke up. Hey, maybe you should just sit down and be quiet. You're holding up the line. Victoria turned to him. Excuse me? You heard me, Kevin said. You're being incredibly rude. Just sit down. Victoria's face turned red. I am a Platinum Elite member. I fly 60,000 miles a year, and I will not be spoken to like this by what? Catherine said quietly. By people you think are beneath you? Victoria looked at her. I didn't say that. You didn't have to, Catherine said calmly. Sarah tried again. Ma'am, please take your seat. We need to prepare for departure. Victoria huffed, threw her carry-on bin into the overhead bin with more force than necessary, and sat down in 23C. But she made a point of turning her body away from Catherine, and she pulled out her phone to text someone. You will not believe the disaster I'm sitting next to. This airline is a joke. Catherine opened her book and continued reading, as if nothing had happened.
Once the plane took off and reached cruising altitude, the tension in row 23 didn't ease. Victoria made a show of being as uncomfortable as possible. She kept her arms crossed tightly, taking up as little space as she could while making it clear she was suffering. When the beverage cart came around, Sarah asked, "What can I get you?" "Champagne," Victoria said, "and make it a double." Sarah poured the drink and handed it to her. Then she turned to Catherine. "And for you, ma'am?" "Just water, please," Catherine said. "Thank you." Victoria scoffed quietly. Of course. Kevin heard it and shot Victoria a look. "Do you have a problem?" "I have many problems," Victoria said, "but they're none of your concern." Catherine sipped her water and returned to her book. But Victoria wasn't done. 20 minutes later, Catherine got up to use the restroom. As soon as she left, Victoria turned to Kevin. "I don't know how you can stand sitting next to her," Victoria said. Kevin frowned. "What are you talking about?" "She obviously can't afford to be here," Victoria said. "Look at her clothes, her bag. She probably saved for months just to buy this ticket." "So what?" Kevin said. "That's none of your business." "It is when I have to sit next to her," Victoria said. "I work hard for my money. I shouldn't have to be subjected to people like that." "People like what?" Kevin asked, his voice rising. "What exactly is wrong with her?" "She's poor," Victoria said bluntly, "and I didn't pay full price to sit next to someone who—" She stopped mid-sentence, because Catherine was standing in the aisle, right behind her. She'd heard everything. Victoria's face flushed, but she didn't apologize. Catherine calmly moved past her and sat back down in her seat. The rest of row 23 was silent. Victoria put in her earpods and closed her eyes, clearly done with the conversation. Kevin leaned over to Catherine. "I'm really sorry about her." Catherine gave him a small smile. "Don't worry about it. I've dealt with worse." "Still, you seem like a nice person. You don't deserve that." "Thank you," Catherine said. She went back to her book, but inside she was thinking about all the times she'd encountered people like Victoria. People who judged others based on appearances, people who thought money made them better, people who'd never had to prove themselves in a world that didn't want them there. Catherine had spent decades in a male-dominated industry, fighting for respect, earning every stripe on her uniform, and she'd learned something important along the way. True character reveals itself in moments of crisis,
And those moments were coming sooner than anyone expected. About 40 minutes into the flight, a commotion started a few rows back. A woman was crying. A man's voice was urgent. "She's having trouble breathing. Does anyone know first aid?" Catherine immediately stood up and moved to the aisle. "I can help," she said. She made her way to the back of the plane. A woman in her 50s was gasping for air, her face pale, her hand clutching her chest. Her husband was panicking. "She has asthma. Her inhaler isn't working. I don't know what to do." Catherine knelt down beside them, her voice calm and steady. "What's her name?" the husband said. "Linda." "Okay, Linda, I need you to listen to my voice," Catherine said gently. "We're going to get through this together. Can you nod if you can hear me?" Linda nodded weakly. "Good. Now I want you to breathe with me, slow and steady. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Follow my rhythm." Catherine began demonstrating, her voice soothing, her presence commanding. Slowly, Linda's breathing began to regulate. Sarah, the flight attendant, appeared with an oxygen tank. Catherine helped position the mask over Linda's face. After a few minutes, Linda's color returned, her breathing steadied. Her husband was crying with relief. Thank you so much." Catherine squeezed his hand. "She's going to be okay. Just keep the oxygen on her until we land." As Catherine walked back to her seat, passengers were staring at her with newfound respect. Kevin looked at her with awe. "That was incredible. How did you know what to do?" Catherine shrugged. "I had some training." "What do you do for work?" Catherine smiled. "I'm retired now, but I used to fly planes." Kevin's eyes widened. "You were a pilot?" "For 35 years, Catherine said. "That's amazing," Kevin said. Victoria, who'd been pretending to sleep, opened her eyes slightly, but she didn't say anything.
30 minutes later, the plane was cruising smoothly at 35,000 feet. Most passengers were reading, watching movies, or dozing. And then it happened. A loud bang. The plane shuddered violently. Oxygen masks dropped from the overhead compartments. People screamed. The captain's voice came over the intercom, strained and urgent. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing a mechanical failure. Please remain calm and put on your oxygen masks. Flight attendants, prepare for emergency landing procedures." Panic erupted. Children were crying. Adults were shouting. Some people were praying. Victoria grabbed her armrests, her knuckles white, her face pale with terror. "Oh my God," she whispered. "We're going to die." Catherine remained calm. She put on her oxygen mask, then helped Kevin with his. Then she turned to Victoria. "Put your mask on," Catherine said firmly. Victoria's hands were shaking so badly she couldn't get it over her head. Catherine reached over and helped her, adjusting the straps. "Breathe normally," Catherine said. "You're going to be okay." Victoria looked at her with wide, terrified eyes. "How do you know?" "Because I've been through this before," Catherine said. The plane continued to shake. The lights flickered. The captain's voice came back on. "We've lost one engine and the other is failing. We're descending rapidly. Prepare for emergency landing." People were sobbing. Victoria was hyperventilating. "I don't want to die! I don't want to die!" Catherine took her hand. "Look at me." Victoria looked at her, tears streaming down her face. "You're not going to die," Catherine said, "but I need you to stay calm. Can you do that?" Victoria nodded, still shaking. Catherine looked up at Sarah, who was struggling to maintain order. "Sarah?" Catherine called out. Sarah turned, relief flooding her face when she saw Catherine. "Catherine, I don't know what to do. The pilots—" "I know. Get me to the cockpit." Sarah's eyes widened. "What?" "I'm a pilot, 35 years. I can help." Sarah hesitated for only a second, then she nodded. "Follow me." Catherine unbuckled her seatbelt and stood up. Victoria grabbed her arm. "Wait, where are you going?" "To help fly this plane," Catherine said. Victoria stared at her in shock. "You're a pilot?" "I was, and today I still am." She pulled free and followed Sarah to the front of the plane. Catherine burst into the cockpit. The captain, a man in his 40s, was struggling with the controls. His co-pilot was unconscious, slumped over in his seat. "What happened?" the captain asked her. "Who are you?" "Captain Catherine Williams, retired United Airlines, 20,000 flight hours. What do you need?" The captain's face flooded with relief. "We've lost both engines. I'm trying to glide us to the nearest airport, but I can't do it alone. My co-pilot hit his head when we lost the first engine." "Move over," Catherine said. She slid into the co-pilot's seat and immediately began assessing the instruments. Altitude, 18,000 feet and dropping. Airspeed, decreasing. They had maybe 5 minutes before they lost all control. "Where's the nearest airport?" "Phoenix Sky Harbor, 23 miles northeast. We can make it, but it's going to be close." Her hands moved over the controls with practiced precision, adjusting flaps, calculating descent rate, communicating with air traffic control. "This is Flight 447. We are declaring an emergency. Both engines out, attempting dead stick landing at Sky Harbor." Air traffic control responded immediately. "Flight 447, you are cleared for emergency landing. All runways cleared. Emergency services standing by." Catherine's voice was calm, steady, commanding. "Okay, we're at 12,000 feet. Descent rate is manageable. We need to extend the glide as much as possible." The captain looked at her with awe. "You've done this before?" "Once. Engine failure over the Atlantic. Got everyone down safe. Then I'm putting my faith in you." Catherine allowed herself a small smile. "Good choice."
Back in the cabin, passengers were terrified. Victoria was praying, tears streaming down her face. Kevin was holding the hand of the elderly woman next to him. Sarah was walking the aisles, trying to keep people calm. "We're going to be okay," Sarah kept saying. "We have an experienced pilot helping in the cockpit." "Who?" someone shouted. "A passenger," Sarah said. "She's a retired airline captain." Victoria's breath caught. "Catherine," she whispered. Kevin looked at her. "The woman you said didn't belong here?" Victoria closed her eyes, shame and fear washing over her. In the cockpit, Catherine was guiding the plane down. 8,000 feet, 6,000 feet. The airport was in sight. "Landing gear," Catherine said. The captain pulled the lever. Nothing happened. "Landing gear won't deploy," he said, panic creeping into his voice. "Manual release," Catherine said calmly. "Pull the backup lever, now." He pulled it. A grinding sound, then a click. "Gear down and locked," the captain said with relief. 4,000 feet, 2,000 feet. The runway was straight ahead. "Flaps full," Catherine said. "Flaps full," the captain confirmed. Catherine's hands were steady on the controls. 1,000 feet, 500 feet. The plane was too fast, but it was their only shot. "Brace for impact," Catherine said. The captain announced over the intercom, "Brace for landing." And then the wheels hit the runway. Hard. The plane bounced, skidded, screeched. But Catherine kept it straight, kept it controlled. And finally, after what felt like an eternity, the plane came to a stop. Silence. And then, cheers, screaming, crying, applause. They were alive. Emergency vehicles surrounded the plane. Passengers were evacuated down the emergency slides. Paramedics checked everyone for injuries. Miraculously, aside from the co-pilot's head injury, no one was seriously hurt. Catherine was the last to leave the cockpit. As she stepped into the cabin, the passengers erupted in applause. People were crying, hugging her, thanking her. "You saved our lives. You're a hero. Thank you so much." Catherine smiled, her eyes glistening with tears. "I was just doing my job." And then she saw Victoria, standing at the back of the plane, her makeup ruined from crying, her designer suit wrinkled. Their eyes met. Victoria walked toward her slowly. Victoria's voice broke. "I'm so sorry." Catherine waited.
"I judged you," Victoria said, tears streaming down her face. "I was horrible to you. I said terrible things, and you saved my life." Catherine put a hand on her shoulder. "I didn't save you because I wanted gratitude. I saved you because it was the right thing to do." Victoria sobbed. "I don't deserve your kindness." "Maybe not, but you're getting it anyway, because that's what decent people do." Victoria hugged her, crying into her shoulder. Catherine held her for a moment, then pulled back. "Learn from this. People aren't defined by their clothes or their bank accounts. They're defined by their character. And you never know when the person you dismiss might be the person who saves your life." Victoria nodded, unable to speak.
The story made national news. Retired pilot saves 142 lives in emergency landing. Catherine was interviewed by every major network. Victoria was there too. On camera, she told the story of how she'd treated Catherine. "I was awful," Victoria said, her voice thick with emotion. "I judged her. I was rude. I said she didn't belong. And then she saved my life." She turned to Catherine, who was sitting beside her. "You taught me something I'll never forget, that heroes don't always look like what we expect, and that character is everything." Catherine smiled. "I hope you remember that." 3 months later, Victoria sent Catherine a letter. It said, "Dear Catherine, I wanted you to know that I've changed. I quit my job, the one that made me think money and status were everything. I'm volunteering at a homeless shelter now, helping people, really seeing them. You were right. People aren't defined by what they have. They're defined by who they are. Thank you for saving my life in more ways than one. With gratitude, Victoria." Catherine read the letter and smiled. She placed it in a box with all the other letters she'd received from passengers over the years, letters from people whose lives she'd touched, not just by flying them safely from place to place, but by showing them what kindness, courage, and dignity really look like. Catherine Williams never sought recognition. She didn't interviews after that first week. She didn't write a book or go on speaking tours. She just went back to her quiet life, visiting her grandchildren, reading books, gardening, living with the peace that comes from knowing you did the right thing, not for recognition, not for reward, but because it was the right thing to do. And Victoria learned the most important lesson of her life that day, that the people you judge today might be the people who save you tomorrow, and that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, it's measured in character, in courage, in the quiet strength of people like Catherine Williams, who wear old clothes and carry patched backpacks and have the power to save the world. Never judge someone by their appearance, because the person you dismiss as poor today might be the only person who can save your life tomorrow. Heroes don't announce themselves. They don't wear capes or expensive suits. Sometimes they wear old jeans and carry backpacks, and when the moment comes, they rise. That's what Catherine Williams taught us, and that's what we should never forget.